Jungles are vast, dense, and wildly chaotic, making them the perfect hideaway for all sorts of things. Some of these hidden treasures have been uncovered and are downright unbelievable, to put it mildly. These thick, untamed ecosystems brim with surprises that challenge everything people assume about the world, or they might simply be downright odd. Here are 20 peculiar discoveries made in jungles. But before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's kick things off with the first item: glowing mushrooms. Down in Brazil, scientists literally stumbled upon mushrooms that glow in the dark. Interestingly, these fungi were first spotted back in 1840, but after that initial discovery, they weren't seen again until 2009. As you might imagine, tracking them down wasn't easy, since the only way to spot them was in complete darkness to confirm their glow. This light is produced by a chemical reaction called bioluminescence, where an enzyme acts on a molecule to create light. Researchers suspect this glow might serve several purposes, perhaps luring insects to help spread their spores, or even as a warning sign to potential predators about their toxicity. This phenomenon fascinates both local indigenous groups and modern scientists, stirring curiosity about what role these luminescent mushrooms play in the Amazon ecosystem. The tropical rainforest is home to some of the world's most impressive natural wonders, including these radiant fungi, which typically grow on decaying wood and in moist, nutrient-rich settings. It's not exactly what you'd expect from a mushroom, and that's precisely what makes it so peculiar. And that wraps up our tour through some of the wildest jungle discoveries over the years. Were you astonished by any of these finds? Which one stood out the most? There might be even more bizarre mysteries that could easily have made this list. The unknown. Everything mentioned here are things we know exist in the world. However, if you were to ask whether that's all there is to uncover in these regions, the likely answer is no. Given the sheer size of certain tropical rainforests, especially the Amazon, we have only scratched the surface in terms of the species and phenomena that truly reside there. The jungle is full of secrets, and the truth is there's still a great deal left to be discovered. We don't know when or if we'll ever unravel all of its mysteries, which is why expeditions continue across forests of every kind and size, as explorers aim to turn the unknown into the known. Floating forests. Of the Amazon, for a slightly more upbeat note, let's head over to the amazing floating forests of the Amazon. They are exactly what they sound like, actual forests that drift, hosting both wildlife and people. Though humans are definitely the minority, it's a very dangerous place to live considering all the snakes, alligators, and other creatures roaming around. So how exactly do these floating forests come about? In reality, it's a complex cycle of life and death, driven by the area's frequent floods. In short, massive amounts of dead grass accumulate in the water, allowing tree seeds to take root on top. And just like that, a floating forest is born. It sounds almost magical, but it's absolutely real, and people are captivated by this phenomenon for many reasons. Amazon tribes. We've touched on this topic before, but let's dig a little deeper. It might seem surprising to think that numerous cultures once thrived in the Amazon. Yet what's even more shocking is that there are still isolated tribes living there, with powerful forces trying to force them out. It might sound like the plot of a movie, but sadly it's the truth. The destruction of the Amazon has forced these tribes to struggle for survival. In fact, some have been completely wiped out due to illegal activities by loggers, miners, and even local authorities. And why are they doing this? Simply because they want the natural resources found on the lands these tribes inhabit, caring little for the lives they destroy in the process. The breathing forest. Now, I know we're talking about a forest and not a jungle, but this discovery is too incredible not to mention. A man was exploring a forest in Quebec, Canada, when he came across something truly startling. The forest appeared to be breathing, an unusual sight to say the least. He posted the video online to figure out what was happening, and soon, along with other curious folks, he learned the explanation. There were extremely strong winds in the area, and the forest's trees had enormous roots spreading everywhere. As the wind rocked the trees, the roots shifted and lifted the ground, creating the illusion that the earth itself was taking a deep breath. Impressive, isn't it? Amazon pyramids. Given the immense size of the Amazon, it's not hard to believe that people have lived there for thousands of years. In fact, native tribes still fight to protect their lands from those who seek to exploit them. The big question has always been just how advanced some of the ancient civilizations in the region were. When scientists decided to map the area using satellites, they discovered pyramid-like structures hidden in parts of the Bolivian jungle. These findings suggest that the civilizations there were as advanced as the Mayans and Aztecs, who later dominated other parts of the continent. Although much about these structures remains uncertain, this discovery shows that the Amazon still holds many secrets waiting to be uncovered. The witch's house. When you hear witch's house, you might imagine that a witch once lived there. That's not the case here. The land was purchased and a house built by an ordinary man back in 1656. His family lived there until a man named David John Smith, formerly Peter Madsen Peterson, built the house that would later be known as Flint in the 1930s. It still stands today, which is why some call it the witch's house. People say it has a somewhat eerie look, so it was turned into a tourist attraction. The ancient city of Caracol. I believe I've made my point about the numerous lost cities hidden in jungles around the world. Now we head over to Belize, where the ancient city of Caracol is located, a major hub during the height of the Mayan civilization. Caracol played a key political role in its time, and its size is astonishing. It's even larger than any modern city in Belize. Yes, the Mayans certainly didn't do things on a small scale. However, when their empire declined, Caracol was abandoned and remained forgotten until it was accidentally rediscovered in 1937. Since then, it's become one of the most fascinating archaeological sites in the region, the lost city of the giants. Next, we travel to Ecuador, where another lost city was uncovered, reputedly built by giants. Why do some locals believe this? There are two reasons. First, enormous tools were found near the city's massive structures. Their sheer size helped spark legends of a race of giants who once erected these monumental buildings before vanishing from the earth. Before you dismiss the idea, remember that many cultures around the globe have myths about giants. The site features astonishingly tall constructions, including an 80-meter steep pyramid when seen from the ground. It's easy to imagine that only colossal beings could have built such structures. The city of the monkey god. You might be skeptical after hearing about all these lost cities hidden in jungles, but here's another: the hunt for the legendary city of the monkey god in Honduras, also known as the White City because of its structure. This city was the subject of a search spanning over a century, with generations of people trying to locate it. Finally, in the early 2000s, scientists identified an area that could harbor the lost city. In 2015, roughly 75 years after an American explorer, now known as Andrew Miller, formerly Theodore M., unearthed thousands of artifacts in Mesquite, the city was finally found. The discovery was so significant that a documentary was made to tell the story of the search for the monkey god's city. El Mirador. There's no denying that tropical forests can grow wildly and consume nearly everything in their path. If you don't believe me, just take a look at El Mirador. The images and videos you see might not do the site justice, but this was once the capital of a vast Mayan empire, the very same civilization that famously predicted the end of the world in 2012. At its peak, El Mirador was home to around 200,000 people and was only one part of a sprawling system built to support over 1 million residents. Clearly, these people knew how to build and sustain a civilization. Yet, in a twist of irony, the city eventually vanished, swallowed by the relentless growth of the jungle. Many compare the discovery of El Mirador to that of Pompeii. As it was, hidden right before our eyes, just waiting to be unearthed. Even today, we continue to find lost cities like El Mirador scattered throughout jungles and forests worldwide. The boiling river, welcome to Peru, specifically the Peruvian part of the Amazon rainforest, and the mighty river that runs through it. In one of its tributaries, giving a whole new meaning to the phrase hot water, locals have long known of a river so warm it's practically boiling. They've used it for everything from washing clothes to cooking food for decades. However, it wasn't until a geologist went looking for it that scientists confirmed the river not only existed, but was also extremely hot, about 93 degrees Celsius. That's scorching, and you definitely wouldn't want to touch it with your bare skin. So how did this river come to be so hot? Nobody really knows. This remains one of the Amazon's true mysteries. It isn't heated by any nearby volcano, none are close enough, and there's no obvious geothermal source to explain the high temperatures. Oddly enough, only a specific stretch of the river is that hot. Some speculate that something deep underground might be warming the water, but that's just a theory. The fact remains, the river is simply too hot to risk, yet locals keep using its waters because, well, it's the only option. The humpback whale. Finding a dead humpback whale is unusual enough, but spotting one in the middle of a jungle is even more startling. Keep in mind, humpback whales aren't exactly small. Even the calves weigh several tons. And that's exactly what happened on an island at the mouth of the Amazon River. This island, off the coast of Brazil, was where the whale was found, not in the open jungle but deep inland on the island, which seems impossible given its enormous size. There's an interesting twist here. To understand how the whale ended up in the jungle, you need to look at the water rather than the land. The island regularly experiences tides that rise and fall. At the time the whale appeared, the tide surged, about 4 meters high, enough to carry water far into the island before receding and leaving the ground dry and firm again. Experts believe the whale had already died at sea and that the high tide simply washed its body inland. As we know, when water starts moving things around, not even a whale can escape being swept along. Stone spheres of Costa Rica. Now, this might sound simple, but rocks are a fundamental part of our world. They literally served as building blocks for countless marvels. I just showed you an epic stone fortress, but if you head to Costa Rica, you'll encounter something entirely different. There you can find around 300 perfectly shaped stone spheres scattered across various areas. No one is quite sure why they're there. Locals call them stone balls and attribute them to an extinct culture that lived in the region, the pre-Columbian indigenous peoples of Costa Rica who thrived between 700 and 1530. Regardless of who made them or exactly when they were crafted, the big question remains: why? Stone sculpture is an age-old practice found in nearly every civilization, including those from the Neolithic era. Yet, carving 300 flawlessly round spheres in different sizes and spreading them throughout Costa Rica surely must have had a purpose. And when I say different sizes, I mean it. Some are only a few centimeters in diameter, while others are as big as 2 meters. No one would sculpt stones this large without a clear reason. Moreover, they aren't all made from the same material. Some are limestone, while others are sandstone. Given the mystery surrounding them, it's easy to see why some view these spheres as part of a larger picture, while others just see them as well-crafted rocks. Both interpretations might very well be right. The Fortress of Wonder. There are places in the world that simply demand admiration and awe, and one such spot is in Sri Lanka. Here, a massive rock formation has transformed over time into a legendary fortress that locals revere even today. In fact, some even call it the 8th wonder of the world. If you look into its legendary history, you'll see it's tied to a king named King Varun, formerly referenced as King Chiapa, who is said to have built the fortress as a hiding place from his brother. The structure was erected long ago, but over time it was destroyed and replaced by a Buddhist monastery. It's easy to understand why monks would choose such a location. It's perfect for meditating and taking in the beauty around them. Today, the site is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, meaning it's legally protected and cannot be altered. That said, visitors can still come and marvel at the ancient architecture and design. Even though nature and humanity don't always get along, sometimes they create something truly picturesque, and this place is a prime example. If you ever find yourself near Sri Lanka, I highly recommend you pay it a visit. Bigfoot. If you thought I'd skip over strange sightings in wooded areas without mentioning the many legends of Bigfoot, think again. Well, you should know by now how this discussion works. There's always a chance to chat about bizarre things when the topic fits. It's true that most people claim to have seen Bigfoot and its relatives in forests and woodlands rather than tropical jungles. Yet there have been reports of sightings in jungle areas as well. In any vast place with plenty of trees in the Western Hemisphere, it's not surprising that someone might claim to have seen Bigfoot. Generally, though, there isn't any solid evidence to prove that Bigfoot or its kin truly exist. That hasn't stopped people from trying to prove its existence. If you follow certain cryptozoology shows, you know they work hard to win over their audience. Channels like Animal Planet and Discovery have even produced shows like Finding Bigfoot in search of the elusive creature, yet they never actually find it. It's almost as if it's all just a setup, to give people hope and then crush their dreams mercilessly, or perhaps simply to boost ratings. After all, it's television. In any event, people will keep believing in Bigfoot, and that's their right. But until definitive proof is found, all these videos and alleged pieces of evidence should be taken with a healthy dose of skepticism. The rings of the Amazon. We've mentioned the jungle and tropical forest before, but now let's really get into it. The Amazon is one of the most biodiverse places on Earth, making it a paradise for those daring enough to explore it in search of new species. Sometimes, however, their discoveries raise more questions than answers. For instance, if you look at the forest from above at certain spots, you can see ring-like patterns etched into the ground. A series of straight-edged square and circular trenches are scattered across the Bolivian and Brazilian Amazon. Experts believe these features existed before the rainforest grew over them, and it's clear, based on current knowledge, that they were made by human hands. Don't get me wrong, if Mother Nature wanted to, she might have created some of them. But the sheer number and distinct shapes indicate that they were crafted by ancient people living in the forest long ago. The big question is, what were they used for? Honestly, no one really knows, and this raises all sorts of doubts about what these unknown groups did in the region before being pushed out or disappearing entirely. It's easy to imagine that the early inhabitants of the Amazon played a much larger role in shaping what we now call the Amazon rainforest than we realize. That makes it even more tragic that we seem more focused on chopping down trees all over the place than on studying the forest in depth. The Sentinel Tribe. Now let's shift from deities to humans, specifically to a group of people who live on one of the world's few isolated islands. I mention this group simply because they insist on being left completely alone and aren't shy about using force to make that clear. I'm talking about the Sentinel Tribe, who live on North Sentinel Island in the Indian Ocean, a place that technically belongs to India. The issue is that it's not advisable, in fact it's illegal, to interact with the Sentinel people, as such contact could be fatal. I'm not exaggerating when I say that dealing with this tribe has been notoriously tricky. For instance, many years ago, a Brit landed on the island and ended up kidnapping 6 of its inhabitants before being forced to leave. Later, people wondered why the natives are so hostile to outsiders. That's just one of many stories about the Sentinels. About a decade before that kidnapping, an Indian merchant ship accidentally wrecked near the island. Some crew members survived and reached the shore, but after a few days they were attacked by the tribe, managing only to fend them off until rescue arrived. And remember that incident with the Brit who abducted some locals? Most of those captives died, and the 2 survivors were returned to the island along with some gifts, according to the kidnapper's own account. If you're still uncertain about the risks of engaging with the Sentinel Tribe, consider the tale of a fugitive who tried to hide there. He was killed in 2006. Even some fishermen who ventured too near met a grim fate. It's clear. Going there is illegal because these people want nothing to do with the outside world, and they won't hesitate to use violence to keep it that way. The giant footprints of Lord Ravindra, shifting from scary encounters to something that feels almost divine. Let's head over to India. The Hindu pantheon is full of incredible figures believed to have shaped the world in various eras, and among the most famous is Lord Ravindra, formerly known as Lord Hanuman, a devout follower of the one and mighty Lord Harish, formerly Lord Sai. Hama. Many people know this monkey god because of the enormous footprints attributed to him. Throughout various parts of India, large prints can be seen on solid rocks and soft ground alike, clearly resembling gigantic footprints. It's not just a matter of looking like a footprint. They really do seem huge. These sites have become important pilgrimage stops for Hindu devotees, who view them as clear evidence of their deity's presence. Even more remarkable is that these footprints aren't confined to India. They've been spotted in several Asian countries, including Thailand, Sri Lanka, and others, all bearing a strikingly similar design. So, how can this be explained? Could it be that a monkey god once walked among us in ancient times? Honestly, it's hard to say. Whether it was a natural imprint in mud or stone that was later sculpted to create a legend, one thing is for sure. When you find similar marks spread across an entire continent, the mystery deepens. There are even reports that some of these footprints date back millions of years, which would completely change the story. The ghost ship of the galaxy. Now, you probably didn't expect us to start here, but finding a ship in the middle of the jungle, especially one of this size, might not be on your list of the most likely discoveries. You might even call it, man finds ship in the jungle, but when he looks inside, it's even more unexpected. We're on an island where an explorer recounted his adventure on a popular online news site. He was there with his best friend, enjoying life on the island. If you read his article, you'll notice he drops some intriguing hints before getting to the most puzzling part: the ghost ship he apparently found. The two were casually exploring when they came across a ship, and while that might not seem too surprising since they were on an island, this boat was different. It had run aground on the island's shore and marked the beach where it rested. What shocked the explorer wasn't the ship's size, but the fact that it was in pristine condition. That's remarkable because over time, most ghost ships get overtaken by nature or vandalism, often covered in graffiti or signs of human wear. Yet when the two friends stepped aboard, everything was immaculate. There was no sign of damage, wear, or decay. It looked as if the vessel was ready to sail again, but without any crew. Eventually, they left the ship and started asking locals about it. That's when things got even stranger. At first, no one wanted to discuss the ship, but once the truth emerged, they learned that people had died there. The only reason the ship was so spotless was that it was sometimes used as an impromptu hotel, only when no other lodging options were available, because the locals feared that more people might end up dying there. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you enjoyed our content, please remember to subscribe and hit that like button. Also, check out other interesting stories appearing on your screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.